Well, good morning, everyone. How are you? Once again, welcome to another live this morning. And great to have you come on with us. We love when you're on with us live. And of course, we appreciate everyone when they tune into the podcast and on their smart device. Brahim, Mike, 1 and 2. I missed you guys yesterday afternoon, not being 1 and 2. Andrea, Niagara Falls. And let's see here. Madeleine, Kippawa, Quebec. Manette, how are you? And Eric from Ottawa. Kevin, our friend from Oshawa. Mary from Norwich. And Fran from Orangeville. We appreciate you guys. Wendy, how are you? Markham. And Olive, Oregon. And Yolande, bonjour. And Nick from our staff. And Norma, Texas. And Kelly from London, Ontario. Darlene, Saskatchewan. Donna, Park Hill. Cecilia, cold and sunny Sudbury. Never heard of it. Sandy, Chilliwack, British Columbia. Faye, good morning. Maria, Ottawa. Nellie, good morning. And Gary from Bolton. And Catherine, a couple of more guys, and we got to get going. We got lots of questions. Dave, Muskoka, Judy, New Brunswick, Cheryl, West Virginia. Oh, Stouffville, that's got to be Millica. Crystal, and Deb from Timmins. Janice, how are you? And Sandy, good morning. And Carol from Saskatchewan. Susan, we appreciate you guys. Cheryl. Okay, let's get going, guys, because we'll never finish if we don't. Okay, Leary is asking, what supplement helps with ALS? Well, look, Lou Gehrig's No Fun Under the Sun. And I think I actually talked about this a couple of weeks ago, just how prevalent ALS is today. Like it's on, the numbers are astounding, which used to be a very rare disorder. But answering your question, Leary, here's my protocol for ALS. One is the reset. Okay, so anything in the brain, do the reset 30 days. Anything neurological, the reset. When you're burning ketones, it's actually good for you, good for the brain, good for the neurological system. I use the example of epilepsy and the use of the ketotic diet, okay? So putting yourself into ketosis is something that I would recommend. And then supplements, B12, neurological. Vitamin D, neurological. High DHA, brain, neurological. Navitol crosses the blood-brain barrier, brings extra nitric oxide and glutathione, which is a detoxer. I would put Navitol in that protocol. And then probiotics. And the reason I like probiotics is because, remember, yeast carries heavy metal. Now, the thing with ALS, I mean, look, it's probably a perfect storm of several different things, but one thing for sure, they usually have heavy metal, just like Parkinson's, heavy metal, mercury, lead, cadmium, aluminum. A good broad spectrum probiotic with especially L-reuteri and L-rhamnosus. So they're going to take that, it helps to take that out and get rid of toxins, okay? Get rid of toxins. Thanks for the question, Leary. Maureen, my husband is on the reset and has been for 3 weeks and now experienced being itchy in the belly area. Could that be detoxing? Yes, for sure. Absolutely. Okay? His body is probably trying to get rid of yeast. Okay? So that invasive third army, yeast, okay? Don't feed the bears, and when you don't feed them, they get angry. They don't like it. But tell your hubby, to Marine, to keep going. Dave, what does Dr. Martin think about brain health and the production of phlegm? You know what, Dave? Let me ask you to do something for me. Send me info@martinclinic.com. Send me an email to what you mean by that, like phlegm and brain health. Like I don't know what you're getting at. Okay, there's something that's in the question. Maybe you already sent it that way, but I'm reading it like the production of phlegm and brain health. Look, when I get asked the production of phlegm, I look at a couple of things. Okay, it could be fungus, and maybe that's what you're talking about in the brain, because yeast will cross the blood-brain barrier and bring heavy metal with it. You could get phlegm postnasal, yeast, fungus. Okay, you're always You can get phlegm coming up from the esophagus, and that with low acidity, not high acidity, low acidity in the stomach. So if you don't mind, Dave, get a little bit more specific, and I will answer you specifically, because I'm not quite sure, like in terms of brain health. And if there's a supplement, well, look, I like killing the yeast. Number one, I just told you, with probiotics and quercetin. Quercetin is very good. It is a very powerful antihistamine, natural antihistamine. But anyway, get a little bit more specific, Dave, and I'll be more specific in my answer. Angie, I would like to ask Dr. Martin's opinion on benfotiamine. Benfotiamine is B1, except that it's a fat-soluble B1, okay? And, it's got, it's fat-soluble, so it's sort of a man-made synthetic B1. And what do I think about it? Well, look, for me, okay, this is the way I've operated in my clinic days for years and years, Angie, okay? And when it comes to your B vitamins, now separate B12, okay? Separate B12, because B12 is a finicky, large molecule vitamin, and you almost need perfection to absorb it properly. Okay? You need good stomach acid. You don't want a lot of people don't have that because of that they don't have the intrinsic factor. And if you're on any medication of any kind, any digestive problems, you're going to have trouble with B12. So I separate B12 from the B vitamins. It's the one that you take in a supplement. And if you looked at the population, 80% or more are low in B12. They do not have optimized levels of B12. First of all, they don't eat enough red meat. And second of all, like I said, it's a tough vitamin to absorb properly. Okay? Now you got to understand, I looked at B12 results for 50 years just about. And the vast majority of people never had optimized B12. Okay? Now, having said that about B12, the other B vitamins, I like B vitamins, but I want you to eat those B vitamins. Okay? I was never big on giving you B1, or there's a couple of questions this morning about niacin, which is B3. No, I'm not big on that. I'd rather you eat it. Listen, if you eat meat, If you eat eggs and if you eat cheese, you're getting all your B vitamins. Now, again, like I said, separate your B12. That is my rule of thumb. Separate B12. It's a finicky, different vitamin, and the vast majority of people just don't get enough of it. The vast majority of people. And it's so important. I just talked about the neurological system. B12, and by the way, if you're low in B12, you're going to have trouble losing weight. You remember Dr. Bernstein's weight loss clinic? He used to give you, he'd weigh you. Well, people that worked in the Bernstein weight loss clinic, they give you 600 calories to eat. Yikes. But give you B12 shots. I like the B12. Okay? I like the B12. But B12's a very important vitamin. But the other B vitamins, okay, I really am big on eating those, Angie. Eating them, okay? Eat your B12. And I never gave, I can't even think if there's any exception to that. Like in a multivitamin, okay? Well, in a multivitamin, you're going to get all your B vitamins, okay? But again, I'd rather you eat it. Okay. My doctor's Diane. That was Angie. Diane, my daughter's naturopath has suggested a natural supplement called Fematrix to help with hot flashes that often disrupt her sleep. What are Dr. Martin's thoughts on this? Well, I don't know anything about Fematrix. And I know what I use, my menopausal formula. And because I had to get results. If people had hot flashes, I better have been able to fix it. And oftentimes Navital, by the way, is really, there's studies that show pine bark and hot flashes. So I combine Navital with my menopausal formula, and I like that. Fematrix, I could Google it, but I never used it. So, does it have isoflavones in it? I'd have to look it up. Okay? Diane, thanks for the question. Leary. What can Dr. Martin have that can help with she's asking about, this has become big today, APOB or APOA, lipoproteins. Guys, look, I don't mind you asking the questions because it gets me to talk about it, okay? When you hear about lipoprotein, A or B, and we ought to check that. This is just me, okay? It's my opinion. It's because people today are starting to question LDL, okay? Because for years, they have a medication, statin drugs. The number one selling drug of all times is Lipitor. Okay? The number one selling drug of all time. They give it because they can lower cholesterol, LDL cholesterol. Okay? But there's quite a few studies that have come out recently in the last few years that says, maybe LDL isn't the greatest indicator of heart disease, because it ain't. And guys, you can put your hand up if you've been following me for more than 20 years. I know many of you have, because you used to listen to me on the radio. A lot of you came to see me in my practice days. And I've been very consistent about cholesterol, very consistent, and never changed my mind. I was consistent in the 1970s, and here we are in the 2020s, and I'm still consistent. Cholesterol is a hoax. Okay? I know there are well-meaning doctors, and that's all they get trained by, and you better lower that LDL and your total cholesterol. And now here's another one that's come down the pipe. We never talked about it before, but you better talk about it now, because they're saying, oh yeah, but you know what? We better check you got high lipoprotein A or B. I get a headache, guys. Here we go again. Another reason to get people on statin drugs. That's what it is. It's another reason to get people on statin drugs. LDL, people are starting to question it. Let's find something else that we can lower. Guys, they're looking for love in all the wrong places. Heart disease is a metabolic condition. It's a metabolic condition. It has everything to do with low cholesterol, when you don't have enough cholesterol, and your triglycerides. It's a metabolic condition. Insulin is at the root of it. And that's why we see so much today. Why is heart disease still #1 killer today? Because we looked at something that wasn't the truth. And I'm not saying they're not sincere. Okay? I read a verse in the Bible this morning, in Romans chapter 10. They're sincere, and they had a zeal, but it was misplaced. A misplaced zeal. I kind of like that. I was thinking about, that's cholesterol. It's a misplaced zeal. They have a knowledge, they think it's right, and they have a zeal. Let's get cholesterol down, 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 down. And they're probably very sincere, but they're sincerely wrong. They're sincerely wrong. They're looking at the wrong thing. Again, I use the illustration of firemen. The fireman is at a fire. Are they the bad guy? Nope. Of course cholesterol's in your blood. Of course it is. Are the police the bad guys at the crime scene? Plaque? Is the police, the cholesterol, the bad guy? No. It happens to be there. It's there to help repair the damage. Why do you want to lower it? And, like I said, now they're emphasizing these more blood tests. Look, the pharmaceutical industry, look, they've done some wonderful things. So don't come after me, please, and say Dr. Martin hates pharmaceuticals. I don't hate pharmaceuticals. I just don't. If you need them. But this whole classification, in my opinion, is totally wrong. It's not right. The premise is wrong. Okay? Sorry for getting excited. Okay, I'm not concerned. Floaters in the eyes. Is there lacking a certain vitamin? Well, vitamin S, steak. Look, what do I always talk about? Okay? Macular degeneration, cataracts, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, floaters. I'm telling you, eyeballs has everything to do with circulation. Yesterday, I talked about everything gets affected by insulin, okay? Away from the scene of the crime, okay? So pancreas, insulin, right? But what gets affected by insulin resistance and having slightly elevated, not even abnormal, but slightly elevated blood sugar over a period of time, what happens? What gets affected? Your skin, your joints, your eyeballs, your kidneys, your liver, your heart. Okay? Did I say joints? Like, it's unreal, guys. It's unreal how toxic sugar is. Okay? So, your body's dedicated. Your body's smarter than we are. What do I mean by that? The whole world talks about moderation, and your body says, nah, sugar ain't good for me. Your body knows better than we do. Okay, thank you for the question. Look, you can take, and by the way, for floaters, look, you want to improve circulation. My two best, I'm telling you for eyes, I've proven it to optometrists, and if ophthalmologists would listen, that the best thing you can do for your eyes, cut out sugar, high DHA, that oil, it lubricates those blood vessels in the back of your eyes, and Navitol. Navitol is tremendous for the eyes. You know, when they talked about bilberry and elderberry and the berries for your eyes, yeah, they're all right. Nothing like pine bark for the eyes. Okay? Unreal, and you should see the studies on them. Okay, thank you, Don. Susan, I'm concerned about absorbing nutrients from fat. Is there a way I can ask my doctor to check this? Yeah, you can do that. Get your doctor to check a fat-soluble vitamin, vitamin D. Okay? Well, they can check vitamin A too. But check vitamin D. And Susan, if you're eating a lot of fat, okay? And when I say fat, you're eating the way fat should be eaten, with protein, okay? So when you eat a piece of meat or eggs or cheese, you're wondering if you're absorbing vitamins. Well, you can check that. Get your vitamin D checked. If you're low in vitamin D and you're eating a lot of fat-soluble vitamins, like vitamin D in food, and if you're taking a vitamin D and your vitamin D is still low, Susan, you got a problem, Houston. You got a problem. Okay, and you might have, fat-soluble vitamins. Where that vitamin gets absorbed is in the small intestine. And that's why you need a gallbladder. That's why, you need bile. And if you don't have a gallbladder, you gotta, there's some secondary issues there. And maybe that's, Susan. Do you have a gallbladder? If you do, it's working, I'm sure. Okay, but you want to find out? Get a vitamin D test, but make sure you're taking vitamin D. And if it's still low, you're in trouble. Okay. Thank you for the question, Susan. I appreciate it. Rita, on the bone broth package, it says it's good for cleansing detoxification program. Explain how it works. Well, Rita, look, bone broth is, first of all, collagen, protein, the best in the world. Okay, that's one. But it has, look, the reason it's good for detox is because it repairs your gut. Okay, so let me show you, Rita, okay? Your gut blood barrier, because see how I'm putting my hands tightly together here? Tight, 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 tight. And the only thing that gets in between these fingers or your blood, or excuse me, your gut and your blood is water, nutrients, like coffee, vitamins and minerals, okay? Digested protein, amino acids, that gets into your bloodstream, okay? Because the life of the flesh is in the blood. Your blood will bring you all your oxygen and all your nutrients, okay? Your blood should be pristine. Now, what happens when it isn't? Well, this tightly knit gut, and we're talking, Rita, submicroscopic. Not microscopic, submicroscopic. It is such a tiny little barrier. Your gut-blood barrier is so thin. You couldn't see it with the naked eye if your life depended on it. This is submicroscopic. But you know what bone broth does because it's full of L-glutamine? It helps to tightly knit that barrier. That's what you want. You don't want leaky gut, do you? Probiotics help with that too, okay? So thank you for the question, Rita. Bone broth is the best protein in the universe for a lot of reasons. And collagen on its own, I like collagen. But it doesn't have the nutrient profile of bone broth. So make your own, or we make it. Okay? Thanks for the question, Rita. Louise, what causes neuropathy in the feet? Well, diabetes, diabetic neuropathy, very common. See what I mean by sugar is toxic? Sugar destroys blood vessels. Blood vessels feed your nerves. And when a diabetic has sugar that's not in control, even with insulin, they're in deep trouble with neuropathy. Okay? Neuropathy in the eyes, diabetic retinopathy. Very, very common. Eyes, kidneys, circulation, legs. You know how many amputations take place every year in the US of A? Millions and millions of people lose limbs because of diabetes. You see, your body's smart. It's screaming, get my sugar down. I don't need sugar. I can't let it park in the bloodstream. But what happens if your insulin's not working? What happens, and I always say this, you guys would admit this to me. I have been consistent. When once a person is a diabetic, unless they do a drastic change in their diet, because remember, they have an allergy to carbohydrates, they are going to end up with disaster. Diabetes never, ever, ever ends well for a person. Okay? And I mean that. Doesn't end well. Because it affects their heart. It affects their circulation. It affects cancer. It affects everything. Diabetes is a curse in society today. And the problem is, and I've told you this a million times, that 93%, okay, let's call blood sugar problems being on the Titanic, okay? Let's call diabetes the iceberg, okay? 93% of the population are on the Titanic. That's not good. Oh, Dr. Martin, I'm partying on the Titanic. Yeah, but if you know the history of the Titanic, they hit the iceberg. Okay? On their maiden voyage. They weren't good. And they've been warned, and they were warned, and they were warned. But they were arrogant. So, 93% are on the Titanic. And if you're a diabetic and you've been diagnosed, you hit the iceberg already. You hit it. You're sinking. For those people, the 93%, what is my whole show about? What do we do on the Doctor Is In podcast? We talk about it every day. I can't think of a day where I didn't talk about insulin and insulin resistance and food. Okay? And food. Merci beaucoup for the question about neuropathy, Louise. Brenda, I had my gallbladder removed in 1989. You know why? Brenda, you know why? Use it or lose it. In the 1980s, when people got silly, they thought that fat made them fat. So what did millions and millions of women do? They ate a fat-free diet. They loved their salad and maybe some chicken, but they didn't eat fat. And if you don't eat fat, you're going to lose your gallbladder. Use it or lose it. And then women have another issue. They have too much estrogen. They're too much of a woman compared to their progesterone, and that affects the smooth muscle of the gallbladder and the bladder. Bladder, gallbladder. Bladder, gallbladder. Women's bladder. Why do women have trouble with their bladder compared to men, usually? Okay? Because that smooth muscle descends and it comes down. Not enough progesterone balancing out the estrogen. That has a big effect. So now you have a double whammo. Dr. Martin, I don't eat fat because fat makes me fat. That was the call of the stupid food industry. Fat don't make you fat. Sugar makes you fat. Got it? Okay. I know you guys get it. I know you get it, but a lot of people don't. Okay? Does that complicate things, Brenda? Yeah, it complicates things. Okay? Women are complicated to start off with. Okay? I'm not being sexist. You're complicated. You got hormones. Yeah, look, it complicates things. You might not be able to eat as much fat to start off with. You might have to be more careful. You know, don't eat 100 eggs a week. Eat 80. Okay? Or eat less. Okay? You got to watch. Yeah, you don't have a gallbladder. Now remember, bile isn't made in your gallbladder. Bile's made in your liver. Okay? So you always have plan B. Gallbladder is just a little reservoir for your bile. If you don't use it, you will lose it. And I'm telling you, I'm right about that. Okay, Brenda, thank you. And use digestive enzymes, Brenda, for sure. You don't have a gallbladder, you should digestive enzymes with every meal. Okay? Janet, my B12 is high in the 1500s, but I hardly ever take B12. Why? Well, you got a problem. If you have high B12, by the way, I shoot for high. 800 to 1200. If it's above that and you're not even taking B12, usually, okay? Usually, I worry about diabetes. You might be a diabetic without knowing it. Or you're on your way. Okay? High B12 when you're not even taking it. Or you take it very rarely. And by the way, you'll never get high B12 from eating steak. You'll never get, I eat a steak every day, therefore my B12 is too high. No, that'll never happen. Never, 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 never. It's like you're going out in the sun and you're never going to get too much vitamin D when you get it in the sun. Never. Why? Because your body tops off. Now, if you take it as a supplement, well, okay, it can get high. But remember, I'm aiming for high. But if it's high without taking it, I usually look, you've got some kind of, usually, an underlying condition, Janet, and it could be liver. You got fatty liver. Diabetes, possibly, or a pre-diabetic. And look, I'm not going to scare you because certain cancers can do that too. But, you're feeling good and all that. You're weird. No, Janet, I didn't mean that. Okay. You're unique. Most people don't have IP12, but if you do, Janet, check those things out. Linda. We love Lindas here on this program. Lindas and Larrys, okay? Listen, Linda, listen. Okay, Linda. Does Dr. Martin think a multivitamin is ever really necessary? Well, usually not on its own, okay? Not on its own, in a sense that I'd rather when you say multivitamin, do you mean coffee? Because I love coffee. Coffee is really a multivitamin. And Navitol's like a multivitamin. It's got traces of everything in it, okay? But I rarely, it's not that, that I never gave that. I usually combined it with other things when in our days of blood boost, and I'm hoping to get that product back. Oh, anyway, I'm going to get a migraine. I put a multivitamin there, but with so many other things that make that so absorbable. But anyway, I don't want to get into it. I'm not big on necessarily just taking a multivitamin every day. Okay, William. Niacin. Okay, the flushing type may lower cholesterol. Why do you want to lower cholesterol? William. Now, triglycerides. The best way to lower your triglycerides is high DHA. Exercise, vitamin E, especially weightlifting. Okay? And the reset, empty the liver. Not niacin. Like I said, niacin, that's B3. I never was big on it. I know they made it famous because, this will lower your cholesterol. Why do you want to lower your cholesterol? Okay? So I'm not big on it. Okay? Babita. Every time my son goes to do his blood work, he faints. Okay, poor guy. Not the only one. Okay? He's not the only one. We used to have it in our office because I would take blood and they'd faint. Okay? And I used to tell my girls, keep your eye on this one. Because they would, we just took some blood. But that's called vasovagal syncope. Leave it to medicine to give it. Why don't they just call it fainting? Vasovagal, it's the vagus nerve. You know what? Not Las Vegas. You have a nerve called your 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve. And that gets affected by vasovagal syncope. I remember studying that in school. Oh, I hated anything Latin like that. Oh, why did they call it fainting? At the sight of blood. But I seen it happen, okay? I seen it happen. Keep your eyes on that person, I used to tell them. I'm worried about them, and they just, like they got knocked out. Okay, let me just see here. Sherilyn, I don't have my ovaries, okay? And I know the body has plan B for the adrenals, but does it make as much hormones? Is it the same amount? Well, Sherilyn, if you get your ovaries removed, okay, in a hysterectomy or whatever, plan B, that's why you're fearfully and wonderfully made. You got plan B. Isn't that wonderful? Now, a lot of women who had hysterectomies were put on hormonal replacement therapy. I hated that stuff. Given estrogen, I hated that. Okay? And I was much more on giving progesterone than estrogen, okay? And does it make the same amount? Well, look, it's plan B, it ain't plan A. Plan A is better. Better to have ovaries than not to have them. But it doesn't mean you're not a woman. You're still going to make those hormones. Okay? Thank you for the question, Cheryl Lynn. Lena, what causes the feeling of a lump in my throat? Two things. One, thyroid. Could have it inflamed thyroid. It's sluggish usually when it's inflamed. And the other one could be food intolerances. Your body's sort of, your esophagus just sort of tightens up and you feel like, I got a lump in my throat. That can be from a food intolerance. And the best way to test that is be Dr. You. You say, you know what, when I eat that, it's amazing how the reset really helps a lot of that stuff. But look for the lump in the throat. Look for a lot of times allergies like an intolerance and thyroid. Okay. Sue, just wondering about Dr. Martin's thought on calcium score. I like it. The CT scan, the calcium score scan, I like it. Yeah, I like it. And if you find out that you got, your blood vessels are starting to be calcified, remember, it's not because you're eating calcium. Okay, it's never that. It's usually because you got low levels of vitamin K2. Plus, what starts the calcium depositing in the thing, insulin has a big role in that. And low levels of nitric oxide and yada, yada, yada. Natalie, I take water and coffee. Well, good for you. And magnesium. What else would you recommend for good bowel movements? Coffee, water, magnesium. And the best magnesium for bowel is citrate, okay? Natalie, I would say that you're doing it all. Off the top of my head, you have stiff person syndrome. Is that like, I think Celine Dion has that, doesn't she? Well, go to the neurological stuff. B12, like I talked about earlier. B12, vitamin D, okay? And high DHA, I would use that. People find that to be very effective in terms of lubricating the bowel, okay? Thanks for the question, Natalie. Gail, what are my thoughts on well water? I like well water if it's full of minerals. Have your well tested. Mineral water, it's good for you. Now, I would recommend making sure you're filtering the water in terms of bacteria and stuff like that out of a well, right? Okay, I love well water. June, oh no. This is to Gail, okay? Gail. Now, I don't know if it's the same Gail or not. Does Dr. Martin know anything about indole 3-carbinol 13-C? Yeah, because that's where DIM comes from, okay? It's made from an extract of cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, okay? Now, DIM is better than indole 3-carbol, okay? Because it is more powerful than 3-indole carbinol, okay? Now, I love DIM, you guys know that, and hopefully, prayerfully, our DIM is coming back very soon in our hormonal formula. Oh, okay? And I like it. I like flax seeds to block extra estrogen. Why? Lignans. Okay? DIM, flax seeds. Better than although it does come from that. The 3-carbinol, it's an extract of that is how you get DIM. Okay. June. Okay, let's get going here. Do I have to worry about dogs for parasites like cats? No, not as much. Cats are the worst. I tell people, you're sleeping with the enemy. Don't let your cat in the bed. Parasites. No, dogs are not quite as bad. I don't think you should let your dog sleep on your bed. I know people do, but okay. Anyway, you know, it amazed me, okay? I'm just going to say it, okay? I'm going to say it. It amazes me how, you know, I used to talk to people during, remember the virus a couple of years ago? They wore like almost like a suit and their mask. And they were scared skinny of going anywhere. And they didn't want you to go anywhere either. And yet, they allowed their cats or their dogs to sleep in their bed. I remember talking to a few people. I said, are you crazy? Are you crazy? Like, you know, you were scared skinny of a virus that you couldn't see, and then you let your pet sleep in your bed. I couldn't get over it. Okay? I couldn't get over it. I said, well, what? You know? Anyway, don't get me going. I'm gonna get a migraine. What are my thoughts on EDTA? David's asking that question. I love it. I used it in my practice. It's a vinegar-like substance that took away heavy metals, created by the Canadian and American governments after World War II. And to chelate means, the word chelate means to bite off lead. Because men were coming home from World War II with lead poisoning because of handling ammunition. And they had to do something, and they created this substance called EDTA. Okay? And I like it. And you don't hear much about it anymore because the pharmaceutical industry has taken over. But look, one thing for sure, get rid of yeast. That's the low-hanging fruit when it comes to heavy metal in your body. Because yeast is the transporter of heavy metal in your body. But a chelation therapy, I used to do it in my practice days. Okay? What does Dr. Martin think of niacin for prevention of heart attacks? Bev? I don't think much of it. It's looking for love in the wrong. I like B3, niacin. I do. Eat steak. Yeah, that'll prevent heart attacks. Rochel, R-O-C-H-E-L. If a person takes insulin due to diabetes, does the taking of more and more insulin lead to insulin resistance? Well, you already have insulin resistance. That's how you get diabetes in the first place. You got insulin resistance on steroids. You can't be a diabetic without insulin resistance. So, look, if you're type 1, you don't even make insulin. Your pancreas is damaged. Therefore, you have no choice but to take insulin. If you're type 2, unless you do a drastic change in your diet, you got insulin resistance coming out the wazoo. Okay? So, yeah. Thanks, Rachel. Might have said this wrong. What are Dr. Martin's views? Let me just see how many more questions I got. Oh, just a couple. Okay, you know what? I'm going to leave these and I'll answer John, Helen, Susan, Brenda, who else? One more. And somebody else. Karen, I'm going to answer your questions the next time. Okay? I'm not going to erase those because I can't get all at them because I talk too much. Okay, guys. Thanks for listening. We love you guys so sincerely. Even though this week was Valentine's week, right? You're my Valentine. Thank you very much, guys. We love you guys. The Martin Clinic appreciates you guys like nobody's business, okay? Talk to you soon.